We're going to welcome this investigation. We're going to cooperate with it, and it's in our long-term interest. The city needs answers to what happened in the case of Laquan McDonald, tragic and avoidable death. But this is bigger than one particular incident. We need comprehensive solutions to address the systematic challenges that exist in the Chicago Police Department. As you know, I'll be addressing the City Council on this subject on Wednesday. And I will speak to the history of police and community relations, current challenges that we face, as well as the path forward. We can be judged by the failures of the past or judged by the actions we take in the future. And one of those actions today is I'm appointing Sharon Fairley as head of IPRA, Independent Police Review Authority. She's a graduate of Princeton, graduate of Wharton Business School, University of Chicago Law School. She's experienced in the private sector. She also has experience in the public sector, both at the U.S. Attorney's Office with Patrick Fitzgerald and also with Bill Ferguson in the Inspector General's office. She brings a wealth of educational experience as well as professional and private sector experience to reinvigorate an essential oversight body that we as a city rely on as it relates to oversight and accountability in the police department and the officers that make up the police department. As I said to Sharon over the weekend, as we discussed what does success look like in the end of the day. And when it comes to IPRA and the decisions, we need a body that not only can make those decisions, do it in a way that when they make a decision, that even when the public disagrees with it, they don't question the integrity of the work that IPRA is doing. And so this is a time and a place for new energy, new leadership, and a reinvigorated entity that has oversight to the actions of individual officers in the police department. Now, in the last week, we not only announced the expansion of our body camera for our police officers to about a third of the districts throughout the city of Chicago, a tougher policy as it relates to dash cam and audio and enforcement of that and accountability in that area, a task force made up of distinguished individuals to help us think through oversight, accountability, disciplinary action, early interdiction, and policies associated with transparency and giving the information to the public they need. Each of those are part of a set of policies and personnel changes that are necessary to build the trust that is essential between the police department and community relations. As I said a week ago, this is not the end of the problem, but the beginning of a solution. A task force will look at a series of things that have a long history in the city of Chicago, top to bottom. And they will make a set of recommendations that are essential for us to implement, because while the problem has a long history, it will take a lot of work over the years to make not only the policy, the practices, and the personnel changes necessary to reestablish the trust that is also essential for the city of Chicago. We know most officers conduct themselves in a professional and positive way, both to preserve life and provide greater safety in our communities. I want to thank them for what they do and remind them that they have the support of a grateful city. We also want to honor their service while holding those accountable who can't meet the standards that we've come to expect and the community deserves in the city of Chicago.
First, Superintendent Escalante, how could you have approved the Department of Detectives report in March of last year, March of this year, which cleared Van Dyke of any wrongdoing, cleared, closed, found to be consistent with the attack accounts of the witnesses, all the videotape consistent. We know now from reading those reports that the officers' accounts were not consistent with the videotape. You were the head of detectives back then. How could you have approved that report? And to Mr. Mayor, that report was approved in March. Less than 30 days later, your administration agreed to pay $5 million to the McDonald family. If Van Dyke was cleared, why would you pay $5 million unless you knew something else? I'd like both answers if I could get them.
So,
two parts of my answer to that question. Number one, you recognize that there is a problem in the sense that there is no formal review process that goes up the chain of command for a police-involved shooting. So we, as of today, instituted what is going to be a more formalized process that will review each police shooting that will actually come up the chain. So without trying to pass the buck, I understand your question. There actually was never anything for me to sign off on. But we're changing that so that there will be.
You didn't object to it when you saw something? You saw the video, you saw the witness reports, you realized they were at odds. Why didn't you do something?
That's the second part of my answer. So in that report, there is still a criminal investigation that has to be done, separate from the use of force investigation which is done by the Independent Police Review Authority. If you look at the statements that the officers gave, particularly Officer Van Dyke, as in any investigation where there is a criminal investigation being conducted by detectives, they took the statements that Officer Van Dyke made, literally his statements as they were, what he saw, what he perceived, and why he fired. There was no attempt to alter his statements. That's what he said. That is why when the video showed that his statements did not match the video, he was charged with murder. There was no attempt to try to get his statements to match the evidence. Quite the contrary. The officers took his statements as they were, and those statements ultimately led to the charging of murder.
When you saw the video a year ago, though, it clearly didn't jive with what your officers were telling you, sir. How did you not look into that?
Let me answer Ben, Jay's second. Jay, as you know, and the situation as relates to the city and the civil piece, the family, as this was noted not only by Steve Patton, noted I wrote about it this weekend, the family approached us on the 27th of February. We reached an agreement in principle, I think, in late March, and then took it right to City Council. And those were the...
Why? Could you answer the question? You knew that he was cleared. Why would you pay money if you knew the police department
I think
cleared
if you
him?
look at the testimony Steve Patton goes, you'll, all the answers are there, and that's what exists there.
Mr. Mayor?
In relation to these reports, some of the officers who were involved in the shooting go around the scene, filed reports that were consistent with Officer Van Dyke's testimony. In other cases, IPRA might find these be violation of Rule 14 in the department, and with IPRA and the police board. Most officers charged with Rule 14 are not fired in Chicago. In other cities, it's lie, if you lie, you die. Do you think that these officers, they're found to be sustained Ruling 14, they should be fired, and do you think that there should be a stronger position on lying in the police department for individual officers who aren't involved in shootings?
Okay. There are two parts, if I can't, in that question there are two layers if I can. Let me deal with the first one. As you know, I think starting in December of 2014, so about a year ago, the U.S. Attorney here in Chicago has opened an investigation in a civil rights case as it relates to the Rahm Emanuel shooting and all evidence, all parties, everything involved in that. As recently as today, the U.S. Attorney's addressed the questions as to that investigation, so I'm not going to prejudge to that particular because it's under an investigation right now. I will say I'm as anxious as everybody else for the conclusion of that investigation. As it relates to the general principle of accountability, discipline for officers, there is no doubt that whether you have, and John and I talked about this, Sharon and I talked about it, one of the things in the SAFER piece, we have three entities. Internal review over at the Police Department, Internal Affairs. You have IPRA, the Independent Police Review Authority, and then you have the Police Board, all trying to accomplish and create a structure of discipline, oversight, a punishment system to hold people accountable when they don't act appropriately. One of the reasons I'm appointing Sharon today is given her background and experience both at the Inspector General's office and then with Patrick Fitzgerald's office and the U.S. Attorney's office that dealt with criminal justice and terrorism, is to reinvigorate and have a level of accountability so officers will be held accountable.
Respectfully, that doesn't answer my question. I'm talking about Rule 14, officers who lie, people who are told to get their story straight, If IPRA in the past has found officers sustain Rule 14 allegations, the superintendent says fire them, it goes to the police board, and they don't even get suspended. That's part of the problem with that. So I'm asking you about that.
You've addressed my very concern, which is one of the reasons I've asked this task force to look at the fact we have 3 entities all supposed to be doing something, and it's not happening. That's one of the things that I've charged in this task force, that Lori Lightfoot, Sergio Costa, Joe Ferguson, Randolph Stone, and Hi is all on, is to look at the fact that you have 3 entities, and if people are not telling the truth but don't believe they believe there's a permissive culture that enables that, rather than hold them accountable, we have a problem because people won't trust it. That's exactly one of the reasons I've asked the task force.
Mr. Mayor.